The clock on the wall of Bellinota read 11:47 p.m. when Luna Martinez wiped down the last table near the window. The restaurant had closed 40 minutes ago, but she'd volunteered to stay behind and finish the cleaning. Again. It wasn't heroism or dedication that kept her there. It was the extra $40 Mr. Caruso, the owner, paid for closing shifts. $40 that would go straight toward her brother Danny's physical therapy appointments. Outside, the streets of Chicago's North Side had transformed into that peculiar kind of urban silence that only existed in the dead space between night owls heading home and early risers beginning their day. The streetlights cast orange pools of illumination on the wet pavement. It had rained earlier, one of those sudden autumn storms that left everything glistening and somehow cleaner than before. Luna pushed a strand of dark hair behind her ear and surveyed her work. The chairs were up on the tables, the floors mopped, the kitchen cleaned and locked. The smell of lemon disinfectant mixed with the lingering aroma of garlic and basil that seemed permanently embedded in the walls of the 20-year-old Italian restaurant. She was 24 years old, had been working at Bellinota for 3 years, and had perfected the art of making herself invisible. Good waitresses knew how to read a room, anticipate needs, and disappear into the background when necessary. It was a skill that served her well, especially when certain types of customers came in. Luna grabbed her phone from her apron pocket and checked her messages. One from Danny. "Physical therapy went good today, don't work too late." She smiled despite her exhaustion. Her younger brother, 19 and recovering from a car accident that had shattered his left leg 6 months ago, was her entire world. Their parents had passed away 4 years ago, a factory accident that had left 2 orphans and a mountain of debt. Danny had been 15. Luna had been 20. She'd dropped out of community college and taken every shift she could find. She typed back, "Heading home soon. Did you eat?" The response came immediately, "Yeah, leftover pizza. Be safe." Luna pocketed her phone and untied her apron, hanging it on the hook in the small break room. She pulled on her jacket, a worn denim thing that had seen better days, and grabbed her purse. Mr. Caruso had left an hour ago, trusting her with the closing routine and the spare key. She'd lock up, drop the key in the night deposit slot in his office door, and walk the 6 blocks to the bus stop. It was a routine she'd performed dozens of times. The neighborhood was relatively safe and she was always aware of her surroundings. But tonight, as she moved toward the front door to lock it, something felt different. Luna couldn't name it exactly. Maybe it was the way the streetlights seemed dimmer than usual. Maybe it was the absence of the usual late-night traffic sounds. Or maybe it was the black SUV she'd noticed parked across the street, its engine running, windows tinted so dark she couldn't see inside. She told herself she was being paranoid. This was Chicago. Black SUVs were everywhere. Rich people, business executives, tourists who could afford them. It meant nothing. Luna locked the front door from the inside and moved toward the back entrance, which led to a small alley behind the restaurant. This was the route the staff used, the route she always took. The alley opened onto a side street that led to her bus stop. She was reaching for the back door handle when she heard it. Footsteps. Not the hurried click of heels or the heavy trudge of work boots. These were measured, deliberate, the kind of footsteps that belonged to someone who moved with purpose and control. Luna froze, her hand on the door handle, her heart suddenly loud in her ears. "The front door is locked," a voice said from behind her, "and you shouldn't use the back entrance tonight." She spun around, her back pressing against the door, her hand instinctively clutching her purse. The man standing in the dim hallway that led from the dining area was tall, easily over 6 feet, with broad shoulders beneath a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. His dark hair was styled back, revealing a face that could have been carved from marble. Strong jaw, straight nose, intense eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. He looked to be in his late 30s, maybe early 40s, and carried himself with the kind of confidence that came from never having to prove anything to anyone. Luna recognized him immediately. She'd served him dozens of times over the past year. Damiano Moretti. He always came in late, always sat in the corner booth away from the windows, always ordered the same thing, espresso, no sugar, and whatever special Mr. Caruso had prepared that night. He never looked at the menu. He tipped well, sometimes absurdly well, and he never made small talk beyond the necessities of ordering. But Luna wasn't naive. She knew who he was, or at least what people whispered about him. In a neighborhood like this, you learned quickly which customers were connected, which ones carried weight, which ones you smiled at and served without asking questions. Damiano Moretti was at the top of that particular list. Mr. Moretti? Luna managed, her voice steadier than she felt. I didn't realize anyone was still here. The restaurant is closed. I know, he said, not moving from his position near the dining room entrance. His hands were in his pockets, his posture relaxed, but there was something in his eyes that made Luna's survival instincts kick into high gear. I came in through the back about 10 minutes ago. Caruso gave me a key years ago. Of course he did, Luna thought. I was just leaving, she said, trying to keep her tone polite but firm. I've finished closing, I need to catch my bus. No, Damiano said, and it wasn't a command or a threat. It was a statement of fact. You're not taking the bus tonight. Luna's grip tightened on her purse. I appreciate your concern, Mr. Moretti, but I'm perfectly capable of getting home on my own. I do it every night. Not tonight. He moved then, walking toward her with that same measured pace, and Luna forced herself not to shrink back against the door. She'd learned early in her waitressing career that showing fear was dangerous. Predators, human ones, could smell it. But Damiano didn't feel like a predator in that moment. He felt like something else, something more complicated. He stopped about 6 feet away, maintaining a respectful distance, and Luna could see his face more clearly now in the harsh fluorescent light of the hallway. There were lines around his eyes, a small scar near his left temple, and something in his expression that looked almost like concern. There are 3 vehicles circling this block, Damiano said quietly. They've been here for the past 20 minutes. Black sedans, professionally driven, windows tinted. They're not police, they're not private security, and they're not random. Luna's stomach dropped. How do you know? Because I notice things, Miss Martinez. And because those vehicles don't belong to anyone I do business with. He paused, his dark eyes searching her face. Which means they belong to someone I don't do business with, and that makes them dangerous. The use of her last name startled her. She'd never told him her name beyond Luna on her name tag. Why would that have anything to do with me? She asked, though even as the words left her mouth, a memory flickered. 2 weeks ago, 3 men in expensive suits speaking Italian in hushed tones at a corner table. One of them had dropped a folder. Luna had picked it up without looking at the contents and handed it back with a smile. The man had stared at her for a long moment before taking it, his eyes cold and calculating. Damiano saw the recognition on her face. You're starting to understand. I didn't see anything, Luna said quickly. That folder, I didn't look at it. I don't know what was in it. I don't know anything. I know you don't, Damiano said, and there was something almost gentle in his tone. But they don't know that, or they don't care. Sometimes in my world, Miss Martinez, being in the wrong place at the wrong time is enough. Luna's mind raced. This couldn't be happening. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. She was a waitress. She kept her head down, paid her bills, took care of her brother. She wasn't involved in anything. What do you want from me? She asked, hating the slight tremor in her voice. I want you to let me drive you home, Damiano said. That's all. My car is in the alley. We'll take the back entrance and you'll be home in 15 minutes. Tomorrow, you'll come to work like usual and hopefully this will all be resolved. And if it's not resolved, Damiano's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Then we'll deal with that tomorrow. Luna looked at him, really looked at him, trying to read the man behind the reputation. His suit probably cost more than she made in 3 months. His watch, she caught a glimpse of it as he pulled one hand from his pocket, was definitely worth more than her entire yearly salary. He existed in a world so far removed from hers that they might as well have been from different planets. But in that moment, standing in the back hallway of Bella Nata with the distant sound of engines idling outside, Luna made a calculation. She could refuse, push past him, take her chances with the back alley and the bus stop and whatever was waiting in those black sedans. She could assert her independence, her right to make her own choices. Or she could trust the instinct that was screaming at her that Damiano Moretti, whatever else he might be, was telling her the truth. Okay, she said quietly, but I need to call my brother. He'll worry if I'm late. Damiano nodded. Of course, but not until we're in the car and moving. Phone signals can be tracked. That statement sent another chill down Luna's spine, but she nodded. Damiano moved to the back door, his movements fluid and controlled. He pulled out his own phone, sent a quick text, then pocketed it again. My driver will pull up to the door in 30 seconds. When he does, we move quickly but not frantically, understood? Understood. Those 30 seconds felt like an eternity. Luna could hear her own heartbeat, could feel the adrenaline making her fingers tingle. This was insane. This was beyond insane. She should call the police. She should. A car engine purred in the alley, close and powerful. Damiano opened the door. Now, Luna moved on instinct, stepping out into the cool night air. The alley smelled like rain and garbage and city life. A sleek black car, not an SUV but something low and expensive looking, idled with its passenger door open. A man in a dark suit stood beside it, his eyes scanning the alley with professional efficiency. "Miss Martinez," the man said with a slight nod, gesturing to the back seat. Luna slid in and Damiano followed, the door closing behind him with a solid, expensive thunk. The interior smelled like leather and something expensive, cologne maybe, or just the scent of money. The windows were tinted dark enough that the outside world became shadows and shapes. "Drive," Damiano said to the driver. "Standard route. Check for tails." "Yes, sir." The car moved smoothly out of the alley, turning onto the side street. Luna resisted the urge to look out the back window to see if those black sedans were following. Instead, she pulled out her phone. "Wait," Damiano said, his hand hovering near hers but not touching. "Let me check it first." "Check it? For tracking software, may I?" Luna handed him the phone, feeling increasingly like she'd stepped into someone else's life. Damiano pulled out his own phone, did something that involved both devices being held close together, and then handed hers back. "You're clean. Make your call." Luna dialed Danny's number. He picked up on the second ring. "Luna, you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine," she said, forcing her voice to sound normal. "I'm just, Mr. Caruso had some extra paperwork for me to handle. I'm going to be a bit later than usual, don't wait up." "You sure you're okay? You sound weird." "I'm just tired, Danny. Long shift. I'll see you soon. Be safe, sis." "Always." She ended the call and looked at Damiano. "Thank you." He nodded but said nothing, his attention on the window and the streets passing by. The driver, Luna realized she didn't even know his name, navigated through the city with the kind of precision that suggested he'd done this route, or routes like it, many times before. "Where do you live?" Damiano asked. Luna hesitated, then realized he probably already knew. "Ashland Avenue near the university." "I know it." Of course he did. They drove in silence for several minutes. Luna watched the familiar streets pass by, ordinary and extraordinary at the same time. Every parked car could be a threat. Every pedestrian could be watching. Her normal, predictable world had tilted sideways, and she wasn't sure how to tilt it back. "Why are you helping me?" she finally asked. "You don't know me." "Not really." Damiano was quiet for a long moment, his profile sharp against the passing lights of the city. When he spoke, his voice was low and careful. "You've served me coffee and food for a year, Miss Martinez. You've never asked questions. You've never stared. You've never tried to impress me or manipulate your way into my world. You've been kind without expecting anything in return. In my experience, that's rare. I'm just doing my job." "No," he said, turning to look at her, and Luna was struck by the intensity in his dark eyes. "You're being decent, there's a difference." Luna didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. The car turned onto her street, and the driver slowed. "Which building, sir?" "The brick one," Luna said, "with the blue door." The car pulled to the curb, and the driver immediately began scanning the street. Luna noticed he had a small earpiece, and his lips moved silently. He was communicating with someone. More security? How many people did Damiano have watching right now? "It looks clear," the driver said, "but I recommend speed." Damiano nodded and turned to Luna. "I'll walk you to your door." It's not a suggestion." They exited the car together, and Luna was acutely aware of how exposed they were on the sidewalk. The street was quiet. Most of her neighbors were asleep, but every shadow felt threatening now. They reached her building's entrance, and Luna fumbled with her keys. Her hands were shaking slightly, adrenaline finally catching up with her. Damiano's hand covered hers. Warm, steady, surprisingly gentle. "Breathe," he said quietly. "You're safe here. For now." Luna looked up at him. In the dim light of the building's entrance, he looked different. Less like the mysterious customer from the restaurant and more like a man. Just a man who happened to exist in a world she'd only ever glimpsed from the outside. "What happens tomorrow?" she asked. "Tomorrow you go to work. You act normal. If anyone asks about tonight, you took the bus like always. You saw nothing unusual. If those men come back, you serve them politely, and you remember nothing. Can you do that?" Luna thought about Danny, about their tiny apartment, about the life they'd built from nothing. "I can do that." "Good." Damiano stepped back, creating distance between them. "My number is programmed into your phone now. Under Uncle Marco. If anything feels wrong, anything at all, you call that number. Don't hesitate. Uncle Marco? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. It's believable. Everyone has an Uncle Marco. Despite everything, Luna almost laughed. Almost. Thank you, Mr. Moretti. Damiano, he said. If I'm going to be your Uncle Marco, you should probably call me Damiano. Luna nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She watched him return to the car, watched it pull away from the curb and disappear into the Chicago night. Only then did she unlock the building door and climb the 3 flights of stairs to her apartment. Danny was asleep on the couch, the TV playing quietly. Luna stood in the doorway of their small living room, looking at her brother's peaceful face, and felt the weight of the night settle over her like a heavy blanket. She moved to the window and looked out at the street below. The black car was gone. The street looked normal, ordinary, safe. But somewhere in the distance, Luna heard something that made her blood run cold. Gunshots. Not close, several blocks away at least, but distinct and unmistakable. 3 shots in rapid succession, then silence. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from the number labeled Uncle Marco. Stay inside, lock your door, pack a bag with essentials, clothes for 3 days, important documents, any medication. Don't ask questions. I'll explain tomorrow. Luna's hands shook as she typed back. What's happening? The response came immediately. Pack the bag, Luna. Please. Another text followed seconds later. You shouldn't be alone tonight. Luna looked at Danny, still sleeping peacefully, unaware that their world had just become infinitely more complicated. She moved to her bedroom and pulled a duffel bag from the closet. Clothes, documents, her mother's necklace, the only thing of value she owned, Danny's medication, their passports. She was packing like someone who might not be coming back, like someone whose ordinary life had just ended and something else, something dangerous and unknown, was beginning. Luna didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window watching the street, her phone in her hand, waiting for dawn or disaster, whichever came first. In the distance, sirens wailed. The city continued its endless, restless turning, and Luna Martinez, 24-year-old waitress from Chicago's North Side, realized that Damiano Moretti had been right about one thing. Tonight was different. Tonight, everything had changed. Dawn came to Chicago with the kind of gray, filtered light that made everything look washed out and temporary. Luna hadn't slept. She'd spent the night sitting by the window, watching the street below, jumping at every car engine, every distant siren, every shadow that moved in ways shadows shouldn't move. At 6:47 a.m., her phone buzzed. The screen showed Uncle Marco. A car will be outside your building at 7:30. Black sedan. License plate ends in 447. The driver's name is Vincent. He'll take you and your brother somewhere safe. Bring the bag you packed. Luna's heart hammered against her ribs. She looked over at Danny, who was stirring on the couch, the morning light casting across his face. She typed back, My brother has physical therapy at 9. He can't miss it. The response was immediate. I'll arrange for a physical therapist to come to you. Trust me, Luna. Please. That word, trust, felt enormous. She barely knew Damiano Moretti. She'd served him coffee and pasta dozens of times, but what did she really know about him? Only whispers and rumors, the kind of neighborhood knowledge that was passed around like currency. But she also remembered the gunshots last night, the black sedans, the look in Damiano's eyes when he'd said, You shouldn't be alone tonight. Danny sat up, rubbing his eyes. Luna, why are you up so early? She moved away from the window and sat beside him on the couch, trying to arrange her face into something that wouldn't terrify him. Danny, I need you to listen to me very carefully and not panic, okay? His expression shifted immediately from sleepy to alert. At 19, Danny had already lived through losing their parents, surviving a car accident that nearly took his leg, and watching his sister work herself to exhaustion to keep them afloat. He knew the difference between everyday problems and real crises. What happened? There's a situation at the restaurant, Luna said, choosing her words carefully. Something involving some customers. It's probably nothing, but someone I trust thinks it's safer if we stay somewhere else for a few days. Just as a precaution. Danny's eyes narrowed. Someone you trust? Who? A regular customer. He has connections. He knows things about what's happening, and he's trying to help us. Luna, what kind of connections? She met her brother's eyes. They'd never lied to each other. Even when the truth was painful, even when it was complicated, they'd always been honest. The kind of connections that mean he knows when something dangerous is happening, she said quietly. And Danny, I think something dangerous is happening. He was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then, is this about those guys who came into the restaurant a couple weeks ago? The ones you told me about? The ones who made you uncomfortable? Luna had mentioned them in passing. 3 men in expensive suits who'd watched her a little too closely, who'd spoken in Italian and left without tipping. She hadn't thought much of it at the time. Maybe, she admitted. I don't know for sure, but I'd rather be overly careful than dead, Danny finished. Yeah, okay. When do we leave? 7:30. And Danny, she grabbed his hand. Your physical therapy. The person helping us is arranging for a therapist to come to wherever we're staying. You won't miss any sessions, I promise. Danny squeezed her hand back. I trust you, Luna. You've never steered me wrong. That trust felt like a weight and a lifeline at the same time. At 7:28 a.m., Luna stood by the window with their packed bags, watching the street. At exactly 7:30, a black sedan with license plates ending in 447 pulled up to the curb. That's our ride, she said. They moved quickly, Luna supporting Danny's weight on the stairs. His leg was always stiffest in the mornings, and emerged onto the sidewalk. The sedan's back door opened, and a man in his 30s with kind eyes and a professional demeanor stepped out. Miss Martinez? I'm Vincent. Mr. Moretti sent me. Luna nodded, helping Danny into the back seat before sliding in beside him. Vincent took their bags and closed the trunk with a soft thump. As they pulled away from the curb, Luna looked back at their building. The blue door, the brick facade, the tiny window of their third-floor apartment. She had a strange, hollow feeling that she wouldn't see it again anytime soon. Vincent drove with the same professional efficiency as the driver from last night. He didn't make small talk, didn't turn on the radio, just navigated through the morning traffic with focused attention. Where are we going? Danny asked quietly. Luna opened her mouth to say she didn't know, but Vincent spoke first. Downtown, Mr. Moretti's residence. You'll be safe there. Danny looked at his sister, questions in his eyes, but he didn't voice them. Not yet. The drive took 20 minutes. They moved from their modest neighborhood into the heart of downtown Chicago, where glass towers stretched toward the gray sky, and people in business suits hurried along pristine sidewalks. Vincent pulled into an underground parking garage beneath a building that looked like it housed expensive condos and corporate offices. Security was everywhere. Men in dark suits with earpieces, cameras in every corner. A checkpoint where Vincent had to show identification before they were waved through. This is intense, Danny murmured. Yeah, Luna agreed, her stomach tightening with each new layer of security they passed. Vincent parked in a reserved spot and led them to a private elevator. He pressed a button marked PH, penthouse, and the elevator began its smooth ascent. Luna watched the floor numbers climb, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. The building was 42 stories tall. They were going to the very top. When the elevator doors opened, Luna stepped out into a space that took her breath away. The penthouse was enormous, an open-concept layout with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of Chicago's skyline. The morning light, filtered through the clouds, made the city look like something from a photograph. The decor was modern and expensive. Dark hardwood floors, minimalist furniture in shades of gray and white, abstract art on the walls that probably cost more than Luna's entire year's salary. But what struck her most was the silence. Despite being in the heart of a bustling city, the penthouse felt removed from it all, suspended in a bubble of quiet and safety. Luna. She turned to find Damiano walking toward them from a hallway on the left. He was dressed more casually than last night, dark slacks and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, but he carried the same air of controlled authority. His eyes went first to her, searching her face with an intensity that made her feel seen in a way that was both uncomfortable and oddly reassuring. Then his gaze shifted to Danny. You must be Daniel, Damiano said, extending his hand. I'm Damiano Moretti. Your sister works at my favorite restaurant. Danny shook his hand, and Luna could see him taking Damiano's measure, the expensive watch, the confident posture, the way even Vincent seemed to defer to him with subtle body language. Danny, her brother said. Just Danny. And thank you for whatever this is. Damiano's lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. Your sister did me a favor once without knowing it. I'm returning the kindness. Luna blinked. I did you a favor? You treated me like a person. Damiano said simply. Not everyone does. Before Luna could process that statement, another man appeared from the same hallway, tall, broad-shouldered, with silver threading through his dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. This is Marco, Damiano said, my head of security and oldest friend. Marco nodded at Luna and Danny. Welcome. I know this situation isn't ideal, but you're safe here. This building has the best security in the city, and Mr. Moretti's penthouse has additional measures that make it nearly impossible to breach. Nearly? Danny asked, and Luna heard the edge of fear beneath his brave front. Nothing is completely impossible, Marco said honestly, but we're as close as it gets. Damiano gestured toward the hallway. Vincent will show you to your rooms. Get settled. There's food in the kitchen. Help yourselves to anything. Luna, when you're ready, I'd like to talk to you. Privately. Luna looked at Danny, who nodded. I'm good, sis, go. She followed Damiano through the penthouse to a study that overlooked the city. The room was lined with bookshelves, actual books, not just decorative props, and dominated by a large desk made of dark wood. Damiano gestured to a chair, and Luna sat, her hands folded in her lap to keep them from shaking. Damiano didn't sit behind the desk. Instead, he pulled another chair around and sat facing her, maintaining that respectful distance she was beginning to recognize as characteristic of him. I owe you an explanation, he said. A real one. That would be nice, Luna said, and was surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. Damiano leaned back in his chair, his expression serious. What do you know about my family? About what we do? I know people whisper, Luna said carefully. I know you're connected. I know Mr. Caruso treats you with respect that goes beyond you being a good customer. My family has been in Chicago for 4 generations, Damiano said. We handle certain business interests. Import, export, real estate, construction. Some of it legal, some of it existing in gray areas, some of it not legal at all. He held her gaze. I won't insult your intelligence by pretending to be something I'm not. You've heard the word Mafia. That word comes with a lot of Hollywood nonsense, but the core of it is true. My family has power, territory, and interests that we protect. Luna's mouth felt dry. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know why you're here, why you're in danger. Damiano's jaw tightened. 2 weeks ago, 3 men came to Bellanotte. They were from the Rossi family, our primary rivals in the city. They were meeting to discuss a territory dispute, and one of them dropped a folder containing information that, in the wrong hands, could cause problems. Luna remembered. The folder had been leather-bound, expensive-looking. She'd barely glanced at it. You picked it up and handed it back without looking at it, Damiano continued. But they don't know that, or they don't believe it. To them, you're a potential witness to information they don't want witnessed. To them, you're a loose end. But I didn't see anything, Luna protested. I can tell them that. It doesn't matter. Damiano's voice was gentle but firm. In their world, in my world, loose ends get dealt with. It's not personal. It's just the way things work. Luna felt sick. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to normal people. They didn't happen to waitresses who just wanted to take care of their younger brothers and live quiet lives. How long? She asked. How long do I have to hide? I don't know, Damiano admitted. I'm working on it. I have connections, leverage I can use. But these things take time. And my brother? He's innocent in all of this. Which is why he's here, protected. Damiano leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his eyes intense. Luna, I give you my word. Nothing will happen to you or Daniel while you're under my protection. I don't give that word lightly. Luna wanted to believe him. Maybe that made her naive. Maybe that made her foolish. But sitting in that study, looking into those dark eyes that held something she couldn't quite name, she found that she did believe him. Okay, she said quietly. What do we do now? Now, you stay here. You don't go to work. I've already called Caruso and told him you're dealing with a family emergency. Your brother's physical therapist will arrive this afternoon. I've hired one of the best in the city. Everything you need will be provided. And you? Luna asked. What will you be doing? Handling it, Damiano said, and there was something in his tone that made Luna glad she wasn't on the receiving end of whatever handling it meant. They sat in silence for a moment, the morning light shifting across the study floor. Outside the windows, Chicago moved and breathed and lived, indifferent to the small drama playing out in the penthouse. Can I ask you something? Luna said. Of course. Why do you care? Really? You said I treated you like a person. But that can't be enough reason to put yourself at risk for someone you barely know. Damiano was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was low, almost as if he were talking to himself as much as to her. When I was 17, someone showed me kindness when they had no reason to. A teacher. She saw something in me, something beyond the family I came from and the path everyone assumed I'd take. She didn't ask questions. She didn't judge. She just treated me like I was worth something. He paused. She was caught in the crossfire of a situation she had nothing to do with. She didn't survive. Luna's breath caught in her throat. I was young then, Damiano continued. I didn't have the power or the resources to protect her. Now I do. So when I see someone who reminds me of her, someone who's kind without expecting anything in return, I protect them. Maybe it doesn't make up for failing her. Maybe it's just ego. But it's what I do. Luna didn't know what to say to that. The vulnerability in his admission had caught her off guard. This wasn't the controlled, confident man she'd served espresso to for a year. This was someone who carried ghosts and regrets and was trying, in his own way, to make them mean something. I'm sorry, she said. About your teacher. Me too. A knock on the door interrupted the moment. Marco stepped in, his expression serious. Boss, we need to talk. It's about the Rossi situation. Damiano stood immediately. Luna, Marco will show you around the penthouse. Make yourself at home. We'll talk more later. She nodded and followed Marco out of the study. Behind her, she heard Damiano's voice, low and intense, speaking in rapid Italian. She caught the word famiglia, family, and problema, problem. The rest was too fast for her limited understanding. Marco led her back to the main living area where Danny was sitting on the couch, staring out at the cityscape with wide eyes. This is insane, her brother said when he saw her. Luna, who is this guy? Someone trying to help us, she said, sitting beside him. That's all we need to know right now. But even as she said it, Luna knew it wasn't true. She was already starting to wonder about Damiano Moretti, about the man behind the reputation, about the pain hidden beneath the control, about why his protection felt like both the safest and most dangerous thing that had ever happened to her. The afternoon passed in a strange kind of suspended reality. The physical therapist arrived, a woman named Dr. Chen who was professional, skilled, and asked no questions about why she was treating a patient in a penthouse instead of a clinic. She worked with Danny for 90 minutes, putting him through exercises that made him wince, but which Luna knew were necessary. While Danny was in therapy, Luna explored the penthouse. The kitchen was enormous, with appliances she didn't know how to use and a refrigerator stocked with ingredients that looked expensive. The guest rooms, there were 3, each had their own bathroom with marble counters and towels so soft they felt like clouds. She found herself drawn to the windows, looking out at the city that suddenly felt both familiar and alien. Somewhere down there was her apartment, her bus route, the restaurant where she'd worked for 3 years. Her life, her normal, predictable, safe life. Marco appeared beside her, silent as a shadow. Impressive view. Luna jumped. I didn't hear you. I'm told I move quietly. He gestured to the city below. Mr. Moretti has owned this penthouse for 5 years. Before that, he lived in a much smaller place. He doesn't care much about luxury for its own sake. This is strategic, high up, controlled access, good sight lines. Everything is strategic with him, isn't it? Luna asked. Marco's lips quirked. He's been trained since childhood to think 3 steps ahead. It's both a gift and a curse. You've known him a long time? Since we were boys. Our fathers worked together. Marco's expression grew distant. Damiano never wanted this life. But sometimes our choices are made for us. Before Luna could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We know where you are. We know who's protecting you. It won't be enough. Luna's hands began to shake. She showed the message to Marco, who immediately pulled out his own phone and began making calls in rapid-fire Italian. Within minutes, Damiano appeared, his face dark with controlled anger. He took Luna's phone, examined the message, then handed it to Marco. Trace it, he ordered, and double the security on this building. No one gets in or out without my personal approval. Already done, boss. Damiano turned to Luna, and she saw something in his eyes that made her stomach flip. Not fear, but something more complicated. Determination. Protectiveness. Rage carefully contained. You're safe, he said. I promise you. They're trying to scare you. It's a tactic. They want you to panic, to make a mistake. Well, it's working, Luna said, her voice shaking. I'm terrified. I know. Damiano stepped closer. and for a moment Luna thought he might touch her, a hand on her shoulder maybe, or her arm, but he maintained that careful distance. But fear is useful. Fear keeps you alert. Just don't let it control you. Easy for you to say, Luna shot back, surprising herself with the edge in her voice. You grew up in this world. You know how to navigate it. I'm a waitress who just wanted to work her shift and go home. You're more than that, Damiano said quietly. You're someone who's kept herself and her brother alive and thriving against terrible odds. You're someone who's kind in a world that punishes kindness. Don't diminish yourself, Luna. Not here. Not with me. The intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. She looked away first, her cheek suddenly warm. I need to check on Danny, she muttered, and fled toward the guest room before Damiano could respond. Evening came, and with it a tension that seemed to permeate the penthouse. Luna could feel it in the way Marco and the other security personnel moved with increased urgency, in the way Damiano's phone rang constantly, in the way the city lights below seemed less like beauty and more like a reminder of how exposed they were. Danny had fallen asleep early, exhausted from his therapy session. Luna sat in the kitchen, nursing a cup of tea she'd made, trying to calm her racing mind. You should eat something. She looked up to find Damiano standing in the doorway. He'd changed into a simple black t-shirt and jeans, and without the suit he looked younger, more approachable, more human. I'm not hungry, she said. Neither am I, but we should eat anyway. He moved to the refrigerator and began pulling out ingredients. Do you like pasta? You cook? My grandmother insisted I learn. She said a man who can't feed himself is only half a man. Damiano set a pot of water on the stove. She also said that food prepared with your own hands tastes better. I'm not sure that's scientifically accurate, but I never argued with her. Luna watched as he moved around the kitchen with surprising competence, boiling water, chopping garlic, preparing a simple sauce. His movements were efficient, practiced. This was someone who'd done this many times before. Tell me about your brother, Damiano said as he worked. What happened to his leg? Luna was surprised by the question. Car accident. 6 months ago. A drunk driver ran a red light and T-boned the car Danny was in. His friend died. Danny survived with a shattered femur and a lot of guilt. Survivor's guilt is heavy to carry. You sound like you know. Damiano's hands stilled for just a moment over the cutting board. I've lost people. I've survived situations others didn't. Yes, I know. They were quiet for a few minutes. The only sounds the bubbling of water and the sizzle of garlic and olive oil. Why do you stay in this life? Luna asked suddenly. If you never wanted it, why not leave? Where would I go? Damiano's voice was matter of fact, not bitter. This is all I know. And more than that, I have responsibilities. People who depend on me. Workers, families. If I walked away, there would be chaos. Others would move in, and some of them would be far worse than me. That sounds like a rationalization. Maybe it is. He stirred the pasta, tasted the sauce, adjusted the seasoning. But it's also true. I try to operate with honor, with rules. I don't traffic in certain things. I don't hurt innocents. I protect my territory and the people in it. If someone else took over, would they follow the same principles? I doubt it. So you're the benevolent dictator, Luna said, and there was a slight edge to her tone. Damiano turned to look at her, and there was something raw in his expression. I'm a man trying to do the least amount of harm in a world built on it. That's all. I don't expect you to understand or approve, but I hope you can see that I'm trying. Luna held his gaze. I see it. The moment stretched between them, charged with something Luna couldn't quite name. Then Damiano's phone buzzed violently on the counter, shattering the stillness. He picked it up and Luna watched his expression change, hardening, sharpening, becoming the controlled mask she recognized from the restaurant. When? He said into the phone. A pause. How many? Another pause. I'm on my way. He ended the call and looked at Luna, and she saw something in his eyes that made her blood run cold. What happened? There's been an incident at one of my warehouses. Marco needs me there. He moved toward the door, then stopped. Lock this door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but Marco or me, understood? Damiano. Luna. He turned back, and the use of her first name felt significant somehow. I will come back. I promise you. But if something happens, if anything at all feels wrong, there's a panic room. Marco will show you. You and Danny get in there and you don't come out until either Marco or I tell you it's safe. Luna nodded, fear coiling in her stomach. Damiano held her eyes for one more moment, then left. She heard his footsteps, heard the elevator doors open and close, heard the silence that followed. She was washing the dishes, something to keep her hands busy, her mind distracted, when the lights flickered. Once, twice, then nothing. But in those two flickers, Luna's heart had begun to hammer. She moved toward the hallway where Danny was sleeping, but before she could reach his door, alarms began to shriek throughout the penthouse. Marco appeared, moving fast, gun in hand. "Luna, get your brother now." "What's happening?" "Breach in the building's security. We need to move." Luna ran to Danny's room, shaking him awake. "Danny, wake up. We need to go." Her brother sat up, disoriented. "What now, Danny?" Marco was at her side, supporting Danny's weight, moving them through the penthouse toward a section of wall that Luna had assumed was just decorative paneling. He pressed his palm to the surface and it slid open, revealing a small room lined with metal, the panic room Damiano had mentioned. "Inside," Marco ordered. "Both of you." They stumbled in, and Luna turned back to Marco. "What about you?" "I'll be right outside." "But Luna," he grabbed her arm, his expression intense. "If anyone other than Damiano or me tells you to open this door, you don't. I don't care what they say, what they threaten. You don't open this door. Marco, promise me, I promise." He nodded and slammed the door shut. Luna heard locks engaging, heavy and final. The panic room was small, maybe 8 feet by 8 feet, with a bench along one wall and what looked like supplies in a cabinet. Emergency lights cast a dim greenish glow over everything. Danny grabbed her hand. "Luna, what's happening?" "I don't know," she whispered, even though she had a terrible feeling that she did know. They'd found her. The Rossi family. They'd tracked her to Damiano's penthouse and now they were coming. And Damiano wasn't here. Luna pulled Danny close, her brothers breathing harsh and frightened in her ear, and they waited in the green-lit darkness for whatever was coming. Outside the panic room, Luna heard sounds, muffled shouts, something that might have been gunfire, a crash that shook the walls, and then, impossibly, silence. A silence that felt like the moment before a storm breaks, or the moment after everything ends. The silence lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Luna knew because she counted every single one of them, her eyes fixed on the digital clock display embedded in the panic room's wall. Danny's hand was tight in hers, his breathing shallow and rapid. The emergency lights cast everything in that sickly green glow that made her brother's face look ghostly, frightened. "Luna," he whispered. "What if—" "Don't," she said firmly, squeezing his hand. "Don't think about what ifs. We wait," like Marco said. But inside, Luna's mind was racing through every terrible possibility. The sounds they'd heard, the crashes, the shouts, that noise that might have been gunfire, had stopped. Did that mean it was over? Did that mean someone had won? And if so, who? At minute 5, there was a sound outside the door. Heavy footsteps, multiple people. Luna and Danny both froze. Then a voice, muffled by the metal door but recognizable. "Luna, it's me, it's Damiano." Relief flooded through her so powerfully that her knees went weak. But then she remembered Marco's warning. "If anyone other than Damiano or me tells you to open this door, you don't." "How do I know it's really you?" Luna called out, her voice steadier than she felt. There was a pause. Then, "The first time I came to Bellinati, you spilled coffee on my jacket. You apologized 6 times. I told you it was already ruined because I'd worn it to a construction site earlier that day. You laughed and said no one wears Armani to construction sites. I said I do." Luna's breath hitched. That memory was real. Specific. No one else would know that detail. "Okay," she said. "Okay, I'm opening the door." She pressed her palm to the interior panel like Marco had shown her before sealing them in. The locks disengaged with heavy metallic clicks, and the door swung open. Damiano stood in the hallway, and Luna's relief immediately transformed into shock. His white dress shirt, he'd changed back into business clothes, was torn at the shoulder and stained with blood. A cut above his left eyebrow was bleeding, tracking down the side of his face. His knuckles were raw and swelling, but his eyes, those dark, intense eyes, were alive with something fierce and uncompromising. "You're hurt," Luna said, stepping forward instinctively. "I'm fine." Damiano's voice was hoarse. "Are you both okay?" "We're fine, but you're bleeding." "Luna." He caught her arm gently. "I'm fine. It looks worse than it is." Behind him, Marco appeared, looking equally roughed up but moving with purpose. "Building is secure, boss. They're gone. We lost 2 men. 3 more injured." The attackers left 4 bodies. Luna felt the room tilt slightly. 4 bodies. 4 people were dead. This wasn't a movie or a story. This was real. This had happened right outside the metal door she and Danny had been hiding behind. "Danny," Damiano said, looking past Luna to her brother, "I need you to trust me. We can't stay here. They know where this place is now, and they'll be back with more people. We need to move to a secondary location." Danny, pale but composed, nodded. "Where?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere they won't find." Damiano turned back to Luna. "Pack only what you can carry in 1 bag. We leave in 10 minutes. They moved through the penthouse quickly. Luna noticed the damage now. Bullet holes in the walls, broken glass, overturned furniture near the entrance. The beautiful space that had felt like a sanctuary just hours ago now felt violated, dangerous. She helped Danny pack while Damiano disappeared into his bedroom. When he emerged, he'd changed into dark tactical clothing and had a duffel bag over his shoulder. He looked different like this, less like a businessman and more like exactly what he was. Someone who lived in a world where violence was a tool and survival was earned. The elevator ride down was tense and silent. They exited into the parking garage where 3 black SUVs waited, engines running. Armed men surrounded them immediately, creating a protective perimeter. "Center vehicle," Marco directed. "Move." They climbed into the middle SUV, Damiano beside Luna in the back seat, Danny in the 3rd row with Marco. The convoy pulled out of the garage in synchronized precision, moving through the pre-dawn Chicago streets with purposeful speed. Luna watched the city pass by, her city, the place she'd lived her entire life, and wondered if she'd ever feel safe in it again. "Where are we going?" she asked quietly. "A house about 90 minutes outside the city," Damiano said. He'd pressed a cloth to the cut above his eyebrow, but blood was still seeping through. "It's registered under a shell company, 3 layers removed from my name. Only Marco and 2 other people know about it." "You're still bleeding," Luna said. "I'll handle it when we get there." "Damiano." "Luna, I'm fine. Stop worrying about me." "Someone has to," she shot back, surprising herself. "You're clearly not doing a great job of it yourself." Something flickered in Damiano's eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or amusement. Or something else entirely. Fair point. They drove in silence for a while, leaving the city behind. The sun was starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange that seemed absurdly beautiful given everything that had just happened. Danny had fallen asleep in the back, exhausted by fear and adrenaline. Marco was on his phone speaking in low, rapid Italian. "What happened tonight?" Luna asked quietly. "At the warehouse, and then at the penthouse?" Damiano was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. "The warehouse situation was a distraction. They wanted me away from the penthouse. By the time I realized it was a diversion, they were already breaching the building's security. But you came back." "Of course I came back." He turned to look at her, and the intensity in his gaze made Luna's breath catch. "Did you think I wouldn't?" "I don't know what to think anymore," Luna admitted. 24 hours ago, my biggest problem was whether I'd make enough in tips to cover Danny's next therapy session. Now I'm fleeing the city in an armed convoy because people want me dead for something I didn't even do. I know. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing." Luna reached over and gently pulled the cloth away from his eyebrow. The bleeding had mostly stopped, but the cut was deep. "This needs stitches. I've had worse." "That's not reassuring." The corner of Damiano's mouth quirked up. Not quite a smile, but close. "You're very stubborn. You know that?" "I've been told." Luna pressed the cloth back against his eyebrow. "Keep pressure on it." The safe house was exactly what it sounded like. A modest 2-story home in a rural area surrounded by trees and isolated from neighbors. It looked ordinary, forgettable, exactly the kind of place you'd drive past without a second glance. But Luna noticed the subtle security measures. Cameras hidden in the eaves, reinforced doors, windows that were probably bulletproof. Even here, in the middle of nowhere, Damiano had prepared for the worst. They were ushered inside quickly. The interior was surprisingly comfortable, furnished but not lived in, the kind of place that existed purely for function. "Danny, there are bedrooms upstairs," Marco said. "Pick one and get some rest. You're safe here." Danny looked at Luna, silently asking permission. She nodded. "Go ahead. I'll be up in a bit." Once her brother had disappeared upstairs, Luna turned to Damiano. "Sit. I'm going to look at that cut properly." "Luna, sit. Down." Damiano sat. Marco, watching this exchange with barely concealed amusement, cleared his throat. I'll be outside establishing a perimeter. Boss, try not to be a difficult patient. Once they were alone, Luna found a first aid kit in the kitchen. Of course there was a fully stocked first aid kit, and returned to where Damiano sat at the dining table. She pulled a chair close and examined the cut above his eyebrow. It was deep, still oozing blood, and definitely needed stitches. I can clean it and bandage it, Luna said, but you should see a doctor. No doctors. Too easy to trace. Damiano, I've stitched myself up before. I can do it again. Luna stared at him. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Welcome to my world. She cleaned the cut carefully, Damiano wincing but not pulling away. His face was close to hers now, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, the small scar near his temple that she'd noticed before, the lines that suggested he smiled less than he should. How did you get this scar? She asked quietly, touching the mark near his temple. Childhood. My father's ring. Damiano's voice was flat. He believed in discipline. Luna's hand stilled. He hit you. He prepared me for the world I was inheriting. At least that's what he called it. Damiano's eyes met hers. It's not your concern. Maybe not, but I'm sorry anyway. Why? You didn't cause it. Because no child should be hit. Ever. For any reason. Luna applied antibiotic ointment to the cut with gentle fingers. My parents weren't perfect, but they never raised a hand to us. The worst punishment was disappointment, and somehow that felt worse than anything physical could have been. You miss them? It wasn't a question, but Luna answered anyway. Every single day. Danny does too, though he doesn't talk about it much. He was so young when they died. Sometimes I worry he's forgetting them. He won't forget. Not as long as you're there to remember for both of you. Damiano caught her wrist gently, stopping her ministrations. You've sacrificed a lot for him. He's my brother. That's what you do for family. Not everyone does. There was something haunted in Damiano's expression, something that spoke of betrayals and disappointments Luna couldn't imagine. She wanted to ask, wanted to understand the man behind the reputation, but before she could find the words, his phone rang. Damiano answered, listened, and his entire body went rigid. When? A pause. Are you certain? Another pause. Keep me updated. He ended the call and looked at Luna, and she knew before he spoke that it was bad news. What happened? Damiano's jaw clenched. They have your brother's medical records. They know about his therapy appointments, his doctor's visits. Luna, he stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. They know everything about both of you. Luna felt cold seep through her chest. How? They have people everywhere. Hospital staff, administrative workers, people who need money or are afraid or both. Damiano stood, pacing. This is more coordinated than I thought. They're not just trying to tie up a loose end. They're sending me a message. What message? That no one under my protection is safe. That I'm not as powerful as I think I am. That they can reach anyone, anywhere. Luna's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the table, trying to steady herself. What do we do? Another phone call. This time Damiano's face went completely white. He spoke in rapid Italian, his voice harsh and commanding. Then he ended the call and looked at Luna with an expression that made her stomach drop. They have Danny. The words didn't make sense at first. Danny was upstairs. Danny was safe. Danny was... Luna ran. She took the stairs 2 at a time, burst into the bedroom where her brother had gone, and found it empty. The window was open. The screen had been cut. There was blood on the sill. Luna's scream tore from her throat before she could stop it. Marco burst into the room seconds later, followed by Damiano. They both took in the scene immediately. The open window, the blood, the absence. How? Luna demanded, her voice breaking. How did they find us? You said this place was safe. Someone talked, Marco said grimly. Someone on our payroll. They had to have been watching, waiting for us to move. Damiano was on his phone again, barking orders in Italian. Then he turned to Luna, and she saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Genuine fear. Luna, listen to me. We will get him back. I swear to you. But I need you to stay calm. I need you to think. Did Danny say anything? Did he notice anything unusual? Luna's mind was spinning, panic making it hard to think. No, nothing. He was just tired. She stopped. His phone. Can you track his phone? They'll have ditched it immediately, Marco said. Standard protocol. Then what do we do? Luna's voice was rising, hysteria creeping in. They have my brother. They have Danny, and he's hurt, and he's probably terrified, and... Damiano grabbed her shoulders, not roughly, but firmly enough to cut through the panic. "Luna, look at me. Look at me." She did, and found those dark eyes boring into hers with fierce intensity. "We will get him back," Damiano said, his voice low and certain. "I don't care what it costs, what I have to trade, what bridges I have to burn. We will get your brother back. Do you believe me?" Luna wanted to. God, she wanted to believe him. But the blood on the windowsill, the empty room, the knowledge that somewhere her baby brother was in the hands of people who saw him as nothing more than leverage, it was too much. "I don't know what I believe anymore," she whispered. Damiano's hands moved from her shoulders to frame her face, and Luna saw something raw and unguarded in his expression. "Then believe this: I have failed to protect people I care about before. I won't do it again, not you, not Danny. I promise you on everything I am, everything I have, we will get him back." The words hung between them, charged with something Luna didn't have the emotional capacity to analyze. She could only nod, tears streaming down her face. Marco cleared his throat. "Boss, we got a call. They want to negotiate." Damiano's expression hardened immediately. "What are their terms?" "They want to meet tomorrow night. Neutral territory. They'll exchange the boy for—" Marco hesitated. "For you." "Absolutely not," Luna said immediately. "You're not trading yourself for Danny. That's insane." "It's the only option," Damiano said calmly. "It's a trap. They'll take both of you." "Probably." Luna stared at him. "Then why would you?" "Because your brother is innocent. Because he's 19 years old with his whole life ahead of him. Because you love him more than anything." Damiano's voice was steady, matter of fact, as if he were discussing the weather rather than his own life. "I've lived 38 years, Luna. I've done things I'm not proud of. If my life buys his freedom, that's a trade I'll make." "No." Luna grabbed his arm, her fingers digging into the fabric of his shirt. "No. There has to be another way." "There isn't." "Then I'm going with you." Both Damiano and Marco turned to stare at her. "Absolutely not," Damiano said. "You don't get to make that decision," Luna shot back, and she was surprised by the steel in her own voice. "He's my brother. This is my fault. I picked up that folder. I'm the reason this started. I'm not going to hide while you sacrifice yourself for my mistake." "Luna." "No." She stepped closer to him, her eyes blazing. "You've spent this entire time protecting me, making decisions for me, treating me like I'm fragile. But I'm not. I survived losing my parents. I survived raising a teenager while working 3 jobs. I survived 6 months of watching my brother recover from an accident that should have ended him. I am not fragile, Damiano. And I'm not letting you do this alone." Damiano stared at her, and Luna saw something shift in his expression. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. "If you come with me, there's no going back. Your old life, it's over. You'll be marked. You'll always be looking over your shoulder. Then I guess I'm choosing a new life." Luna lifted her chin. "Besides, you need me." "How do you figure that?" "Because they won't expect it. They'll expect you to come alone or with Marco. They'll expect guns and violence and all the usual tactics. They won't expect a waitress who knows how to read people, who knows how to spot when someone's lying, who can talk her way through situations you'd solve with force." Luna paused. "Your world doesn't scare me as much as losing my brother does. Use that." Silence fell over the room. Marco looked between them, then nodded slowly. "She has a point, boss." Damiano's jaw worked, his mind clearly racing through options and possibilities. Finally he spoke. "If you come with me tomorrow night, you follow my lead. No matter what. No matter how things look or what's happening. You trust me. Can you do that?" Luna thought about the past 24 hours. The way Damiano had appeared at the restaurant with his warning. The way he'd driven her home. The way he'd protected her and Danny despite barely knowing them. The way he'd run into danger to get back to them at the penthouse. The way he was willing to trade his own life for her brother's. "Yes," she said. "I can do that." Damiano studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. "Marco, start planning. I want every detail mapped out. Every possible scenario. Every backup plan. We've got one shot at this." "Already on it," Marco said, pulling out his phone. Once Marco had left the room, Damiano turned back to Luna. The blood on his eyebrow had dried, making him look battle-worn and dangerous. But his eyes were soft when he looked at her. "You're remarkable. You know that?" Luna let out a shaky laugh. "I'm terrified." "So am I." The admission surprised her. "You are?" "Every time I care about someone, I put them in danger. Every time I let someone close, They become a target. I told myself I wouldn't do it again, that I'd stay isolated, keep everyone at arm's length. Damiano's voice dropped lower. And then you came into my life with your terrible coffee and your genuine smile, and you treated me like a person instead of a reputation. And despite every warning, every rule I set for myself, I started caring. Luna's breath caught. Damiano. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him, could see the rapid pulse in his throat. I'm terrified, he repeated quietly, because the thought of something happening to you makes me want to burn down the entire city, until there's nothing left but ash and regret. Luna's heart hammered against her ribs. She should step back. She should create distance. This was impossible, complicated, dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with rival families and everything to do with the way her body responded to his proximity. But she didn't move. What are you saying? She whispered. I'm saying... Damiano's hand lifted, hovering near her face but not quite touching. I'm saying that somewhere between serving me espresso and bleeding in my panic room, you became the most important person in my world. And that terrifies me more than any meeting with the Rossi family ever could. Luna's hand came up to cover his, pressing his palm against her cheek. His skin was warm, calloused in places, gentle despite the violence those hands had dealt. I shouldn't want this, she said. I should run as far from you and your world as possible. But I can't stop thinking about you, about the man underneath the reputation, about the way you look at me like I'm something precious, about... Damiano kissed her. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was hungry and desperate and full of everything they'd both been holding back. Luna's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and Damiano's arm wrapped around her waist, anchoring her against him. The kiss tasted like fear and adrenaline and something sweeter. Possibility, maybe, or just the reckless abandon of two people who knew tomorrow might never come. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Damiano rested his forehead against hers. This is a terrible idea, he murmured. The worst, Luna agreed. You deserve better. Someone safe. Someone normal. I don't want normal. I want... Marco's voice cut through from downstairs. Boss, we've got movement on the perimeter. The moment shattered. Damiano stepped back, his expression shifting from vulnerable to controlled in an instant. Stay here, he ordered, already moving toward the door. Not happening, Luna said, following him. We're in this together now, remember? Damiano looked like he wanted to argue, but there was no time. They rushed downstairs to find Marco at the window, binoculars in hand. 3 vehicles, Marco reported. 2 men per vehicle. They're setting up a perimeter but haven't advanced. They're watching, Damiano said, making sure we know they're there. Psychological warfare. What do we do? Luna asked. Damiano pulled out his phone and made a call. When he spoke, it was in English, clearly for the benefit of whoever was listening. This is Moretti. You have something that belongs to me. I want proof of life. There was a pause. Then the phone was put on speaker. Luna? Her brother's voice. Danny. He sounded scared but alive. Danny, are you hurt? Did they... I'm okay, sis, I'm okay. They just want to talk. They want... The phone was taken away. A new voice, older, and with a thick accent. Tomorrow night, Navy Pier, midnight. You bring yourself and the girl. We bring the boy. Everyone walks away. How do I know you'll honor that? Damiano asked. You don't. But what choice do you have? The line went dead. Luna looked at Damiano, at Marco, at the darkness outside the windows where armed men were watching and waiting. So we're doing this, she said. It wasn't a question. We're doing this, Damiano confirmed. And in that moment, Luna Martinez made a choice, not just to save her brother, not just to trust the most dangerous man she'd ever met, but to step fully into a world that would never let her leave. She was no longer a waitress who served coffee and kept her head down. She was something else now, something she didn't have a name for yet. But tomorrow night at Navy Pier she'd find out exactly what that was. Navy Pier at midnight was a study in contrasts. During the day it bustled with tourists, families, and street performers. But at this hour, with winter approaching and the temperature dropping, it was nearly deserted. Just the skeleton security staff and the occasional late-night wanderer. And tonight, people who dealt in violence and power. Luna stood beside Damiano in the parking lot, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. Marco was 20 feet away, along with 4 other men whose names she didn't know. They were all armed, all wearing expressions that said they'd done this before. Last chance to change your mind. Damiano said quietly, his hand resting lightly on her lower back. You can stay in the car. No one would blame you. I'm going, Luna said, her voice steadier than she felt. We've been over this. They had spent the entire day planning. Marco had pulled up blueprints of Navy Pier, identified sight lines and escape routes, positioned backup teams at strategic locations. Damiano had made calls, called in favors, arranged for contingencies Luna didn't fully understand, and through it all he'd kept checking on her, making sure she ate, making sure she understood the plan, making sure she knew that if things went wrong, she was to run and not look back. She'd agreed to everything except that last part. If something happens to me tonight, Damiano said, not for the first time, Marco will get you and Danny to safety. He has instructions, resources set aside. You'll be taken care of. Nothing is going to happen to you, Luna said firmly, grabbing his hand. We're all walking away from this. Damiano's fingers tightened around hers. In the dim parking lot light, his face was all sharp angles and shadows. He looked like what he was, a man who'd lived with violence his entire life. But when he looked at her, something in his expression softened. I meant what I said last night, he said quietly, about you being important to me. If we survive this, when we survive this, Damiano amended. I want to try, really try. Whatever this is between us, I want to see where it goes. Luna's chest felt tight. 24 hours ago, kissing Damiano Moretti had seemed like the most reckless thing she'd ever done. Now, standing in a parking lot about to walk into a confrontation that could end with all of them dead, it seemed like the only real thing in a world gone mad. I want that too, she said. Damiano leaned down and kissed her. Gentle this time, almost reverent. When he pulled back, his hand cupped her face. Stay close to me, no matter what happens. Understood? Understood. Marco approached, his expression grim. They're here. 5 vehicles. Looks like they brought about 15 men. They're setting up near the entrance. Danny? Luna asked immediately. In the center vehicle. I can see him through the window. He appears unharmed. Relief flooded through Luna so powerfully her knees went weak. Damiano's arm steadied her. Let's go get your brother back, he said. They walked toward the pier entrance in a tight formation, Damiano and Luna in the center, Marco and the others surrounding them. Luna could feel the weight of concealed weapons, the tension in every step. The Rossi family was waiting near the iconic Ferris wheel, now dark and still. There were indeed about 15 men, all dressed in dark clothing, all watching with predatory focus. In the center stood a man Luna recognized from the restaurant, the one who'd dropped the folder, Antonio Rossi. He was in his 50s, silver-haired with the kind of face that might have been handsome before it hardened into something cruel, and beside him, supported by 2 men, was Danny. Luna's breath caught. Her brother's face was bruised, his lips split, but he was standing. He was alive. His eyes found hers across the distance, and she saw relief and fear warring in his expression. Moretti, Antonio called out, his voice carrying across the empty space, punctual as always. And you brought the girl. How sentimental. I brought what you asked for, Damiano said, his voice calm and controlled. Now let the boy go. Not quite yet. First we talk. Antonio gestured broadly. You've been a thorn in my family's side for years, Damiano. Your territory, your operations, your stubborn refusal to cooperate. And now you've cost me 4 men. 4 men who broke into my home and threatened innocent people, Damiano countered. You escalated this, Antonio. Not me. Innocent? Antonio laughed, a harsh sound. There's no such thing in our world. Everyone is guilty of something. Even pretty waitresses who stick their noses where they don't belong. Luna felt Damiano tense beside her, his hand gripping her arm in warning. Stay calm, the gesture said. Don't react. What do you want? Damiano asked. I want what I've always wanted. Territory. Specifically your shipping operations at the port. Sign them over to me and everyone walks away tonight. Those operations employ 300 people. Families. You'd destroy all of that to make a point? I'd destroy anything to win, Antonio said simply. That's the difference between you and me, Moretti. You have a conscience. It makes you weak. It makes me human. Same thing. Antonio pulled out a gun and pressed it to Danny's temple. Luna screamed and lunged forward, but Damiano's arm shot out, holding her back with iron strength. Easy, he murmured in her ear. Easy. Trust me. You have 10 seconds to decide, Antonio said. The operations or the boy's life? 10, 9, 8. Wait! Luna's voice rang out across the pier, surprising everyone, including herself. Antonio paused, the gun still pressed against Danny's head. The little waitress wants to speak. How entertaining. Luna stepped forward and Damiano's hand slipped from her arm. She could feel his tension, his fear for her, but he let her move. You said there's no such thing as innocent in your world, Luna said, her voice carrying despite her fear. But Danny is innocent. He's 19 years old. He's never been involved in any of this. He's a kid who got hurt in an accident and is just trying to recover. You want to prove you're stronger than Damiano? This isn't how you do it. Then how do I do it? Antonio asked, seeming genuinely curious. You make the deal, but you make it with honor. You let Danny go first, proof that you're a man of your word. Then Damiano signs over the operations. You get what you want and you prove you're not just another thug who hurts kids to feel powerful. Antonio stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed. A real laugh this time, not the harsh sound from before. You've got steel in you, girl. I can see why Moretti likes you. He lowered the gun from Danny's temple. Fine. The boy goes first. But if Moretti tries anything at all, I'll put a bullet in both of you before his men can blink. He shoved Danny forward. Luna's brother stumbled, nearly fell, but caught himself and limped toward her as fast as his injured leg would allow. Luna met him halfway, throwing her arms around him, tears streaming down her face. Danny? Oh God, Danny, are you okay? I'm okay, sis. I'm okay. Danny was crying too, his body shaking against hers. But Luna, this is insane. These people… I know, it's going to be okay. Marco was suddenly there, gently pulling Danny away. Come with me, son. Let's get you somewhere safe. Danny looked back at Luna, fear in his eyes. Luna, go with Marco. I'll be right behind you. I promise. She watched Marco lead her brother away, watched until they disappeared into the darkness toward the parked vehicles. Only then did she turn back to Antonio and Damiano. Damiano had pulled out a tablet and was scrolling through documents. His face was expressionless, controlled, but Luna could see the tension in his shoulders. The papers are here, Damiano said. Digital signature. Once I sign, the operations transfer to your control within 24 hours. Then sign, Antonio demanded. Damiano's finger hovered over the screen. Then he looked up, meeting Antonio's eyes. Before I do this, I want your word, your actual word, on your family's name. That Luna Martinez walks away from this. That she's never touched, never threatened, never used as leverage again. She's out. Antonio studied Damiano with new interest. You care about her that much? Yes. Interesting. Antonio was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Fine. You have my word. On my family's name. The girl walks away clean. Damiano looked at Luna, and she saw everything in that look. Apology, affection, determination. Then he pressed his finger to the screen. Done, he said. Antonio pulled out his own phone, checking something. Then he smiled. So it is. Pleasure doing business with you, Moretti. Enjoy your retirement. He and his men began walking away, leaving Damiano and Luna standing alone on the pier. Luna rushed to Damiano's side. What did you just do? Those operations were always a trap, Damiano said quietly. He pulled out his own phone and made a call. Marco. Execute. In the distance, Luna heard sirens. Multiple sirens. Police vehicles were suddenly pouring into the parking lot, surrounding the Rossi family's cars. Antonio spun around, his face twisted with rage. What did you do? Those operations? Damiano called out. They've been under federal investigation for 6 months. Money laundering, trafficking, racketeering. I've been cooperating with the FBI, feeding them information. By signing those operations over to you just now, in front of multiple witnesses and recorded on this tablet, you just confessed to taking control of criminal enterprises. Congratulations, Antonio. You just guaranteed yourself 20 years in federal prison. Antonio's roar of rage was cut off by federal agents swarming his position. Luna watched in stunned amazement as the entire Rossi operation was taken down in a matter of minutes. Marco reappeared at their side, grinning. Boss, that was beautiful. The feds are saying it's the biggest organized crime bust in Chicago in 20 years. Damiano nodded, but his attention was on Luna. Are you angry? Angry? Why would I be angry? Because I didn't tell you the full plan. Because I let you think I was actually giving up those operations. Because… Luna grabbed his face and kissed him, cutting off his words. When she pulled back, she was smiling. despite the tears still on her cheeks. You saved my brother. You protected me. You took down the people who threatened us. No, Damiano, I'm not angry. The FBI has agreed to grant you and Danny immunity and protection, Damiano said quickly. New identities if you want them. Relocation. Whatever you need to feel safe. And you? Luna asked. What happens to you? Damiano's expression grew serious. I'm cooperating with the investigation. Testifying. I'll likely serve some time. House arrest? Maybe a few years minimum security. My lawyers are negotiating. But I'm getting out, Luna. Out of the life, out of the business. I'm done. Why? Because you asked me once why I stay in this life if I never wanted it. And I couldn't answer you then. But I can now. Damiano's hands framed her face gently. I stay because I thought there was no alternative. But you showed me there is. A life that isn't built on fear and violence. A life that's actually worth living. Luna's heart felt too big for her chest. What kind of life? I don't know yet. Normal, maybe. Boring. I'll probably be terrible at it. Damiano smiled, and it transformed his face into something younger, lighter. But I'd like to try. With you, if you'll have me. Luna thought about the past 48 hours. The fear, the chaos, the danger. She thought about who she'd been before. The waitress who kept her head down and played it safe. And she thought about who she'd become. Someone who'd faced down mobsters, who'd negotiated for her brother's life, who'd fallen in love with the most complicated man she'd ever met. Yes, she said simply. I'll have you. Luna wiped down the last table at Bella Nota, humming softly to herself. It was 11:30 p.m., past closing, but she didn't mind staying late anymore. Not when she knew what was waiting for her. The restaurant had new owners now. Specifically, Luna and Mr. Caruso, who'd been thrilled to take on a partner. The investment money had come from Damiano's legitimate businesses, carefully vetted and legally clean. Danny was doing well. His physical therapy had progressed to the point where he barely limped anymore, and he'd enrolled in community college for the spring semester. He'd moved into a nice apartment near campus, also courtesy of carefully laundered legitimate funds, and was talking about maybe becoming a physical therapist himself. The front door chimed, and Luna looked up to see Damiano walking in. He was dressed casually, jeans and a jacket, and had a smile on his face that still made her heart skip. You're early, she said, moving to meet him. Couldn't stay away. Damiano pulled her into his arms, kissing her thoroughly. How was your day? Good. We had a rush at lunch, but we handled it. How was yours? Boring. Lots of paperwork. The joys of legitimate business. Damiano was on house arrest, but had been granted permission to work during the day. He was running a construction company now, actual construction, with permits and safety regulations and employees who got health care. He complained about the paperwork. Luna thought he secretly loved it. Ready to go home? She asked. Always. They walked out together into the Chicago night. A car was waiting. Not an armored SUV with armed guards, just a regular sedan with a driver named Thomas who was retired police and absolutely harmless. As they drove through the familiar streets, Luna leaned against Damiano's shoulder, his arm around her. Do you miss it? She asked quietly. Your old life? Damiano was quiet for a moment. Sometimes I miss the power, the feeling that I could fix any problem with a phone call. But then I remember the cost, the fear, the constant looking over my shoulder. No, I don't miss it. Not enough to go back. Good. They arrived at Damiano's new place. Not the penthouse downtown, but a brownstone in a nice neighborhood. Modest by his old standards, but comfortable. Home. Inside, Luna kicked off her shoes and collapsed on the couch. Damiano sat beside her, pulling her feet into his lap and massaging them without being asked. I love you, Luna said suddenly. Damiano's hands stilled. They'd danced around the words for weeks, both feeling them, but neither quite brave enough to say them first. I love you too, he said quietly. More than I thought I could love anything. Luna sat up, moving to straddle his lap, her hands framing his face. The scar above his eyebrow had healed into a thin white line. She traced it gently. We're really doing this, aren't we? The normal life thing. We're really doing it. Damiano's hands settled on her waist. Are you happy? Luna thought about it. Really thought about it. Her life had been turned upside down. She'd been threatened, terrified, forced to make impossible choices. She'd fallen in love with a man who carried more baggage than should be possible, but she was also stronger now, braver, more herself than she'd ever been. Yes, she said, I'm happy. Damiano smiled. that real, genuine smile that she'd worked so hard to earn, and kissed her. Outside, the city continued its endless turning. Somewhere people were making deals and breaking promises and living in shadows. But here, in this brownstone on a quiet street, Luna Martinez and Damiano Moretti were building something different, something real, something that looked a lot like love and hope and second chances. It wasn't the life either of them had planned, it was better.